Hello there, my name is Ivan Wayne, doctoral candidate in educational psychology and founder of Voyager, here today to give you a quick review of Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces. This book was originally published in 1949 and carefully and very accurately in detail walks through the literature and philosophy connecting something called the hero's journey, a pillar storytelling arc and tool used by many stories in mythology and many popular fictional works passed down through verbal traditions in many cultures. There are many aspects of the hero's journey, including the departure, the point at which the hero has to leave their normal insulated life and go out on some sort of quest, whether that be to face an internal or an external challenge. Part of that departure is the refusal of the call. The hero, the main character, saying, "I don't want to go," and wrestling with the decision, should I undertake this journey? That's just one of the many pieces that Joseph Campbell presents. And one of the things I really enjoy about the book is all of the quick mythology examples and the excerpts of stories to accurately paint the picture that Joseph Campbell is trying to connect together. This book is on the list of Time Magazine's 100 most influential and impactful books of all time, and George Lucas in multiple interviews and on occasions has referenced this book heavily influencing him when he was writing the original Star Wars trilogy coming out in the 70s and 80s. In addition, Chris Vogler, a writer who worked for many years in Disney, said this book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, influenced him as he worked on the original scripts for Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King. So first off, I'm going to give the accuracy of this book a 4 of 5 stars from a psychological standpoint. It is incredibly cited, as I mentioned before. There are hundreds of examples included, little excerpts spanning all the way up to 5 to 6 page stories, perfectly illustrating and giving you the direct connection to the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell is trying to explain. Many of these myths are well known and well published, and so it's easy to maintain the accuracy throughout the book. However, I will say that the hero's journey and the things that Campbell weaves between all modern and traditional fiction is not always as well stated or as clear and obvious as Campbell presents. And Joseph Campbell does not often admit that the hero's journey is not universal. It's not in every fictional story, but instead tries to claim that this is a general oversweeping thing on every single author's mind. In the same vein, some of Joseph Campbell's interpretations were a bit of a stretch. I had a hard time connecting to the exact thing that Joseph Campbell was trying to say. In addition, I thought many of his analyses were a bit too Freudian, but let's remember this book was originally published in 1949. Sigmund Freud's works were still generally accepted as fact at that point in the field of psychology, and many of Campbell's interpretations rely extremely heavy on psychoanalytic theory and dream interpretation, and they rest on the assumption that the majority of an adult's predestined trajectory has already been decided by the age of 3 or 4 years old based on incredibly young and impactful early life experiences. The tone I'm going to give 4 out of 5 stars as well. I did consider it very well written. However, personally, I had to read several parts and many chapters more than once. I had to scan back over the same page multiple times because, quite frankly, it's written in a style that is incredibly reminiscent of a history or a literature style textbook. However, maybe that's my fault for not being as literate as the common reader in 1949 when Joseph Campbell originally published this book. For interest, I'm going to rate this a whopping 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot think of a book that would be more interesting to me personally, and I highly recommend it if this type of thing sounds interesting to you. I found it incredibly insightful, not only into the fictional stories that I enjoy, the movies I watch, the books I read, but I also found myself connecting my own life and my own struggles to pieces of the hero's journey. Plus, Joseph Campbell presents something called the cosmogenic cycle, which is a bit hard to explain in a very short amount of time. It definitely caused me to do a lot of self-reflection while reading through the book and for some period after I finished it. And I found myself mapping the points that Joseph Campbell was making in this book, published way back in the late 40s, to things that are coming out today, like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Stephen King books, etc. You find the hero's journey and the salient points that Campbell makes in many, many fictional stories that we enjoy today. So overall, I'm going to rate it 4 out of 5 stars. I highly, highly recommend you read it. The only caveats to that is it may turn some people away with the incredibly dense textbook style language. I'm going to ding it just a little bit for the over-reliance on Freudian psychoanalytic thought, but I found it incredibly insightful and something that I had never considered before just how many pieces so many fictional stories, whether they are stories that have been passed down traditionally through verbal and spoken word, or whether they're myths that we tell and we've learned since we were little kids, or whether they're a TV show that's coming out next year. So many fictional stories share many of the same human struggle elements, and that is something that I think is worth dissecting, even if you have to get through some particularly dense language. So if that sounds interesting, please check this book out, The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, put out in 1949. And as always, my name is Ivan Wayne of Voyager, doctoral candidate in educational psychology, and I'll see you soon.